Hey, all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly value, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey, everyone. Can everyone see us clearly before we begin? Put a 1 in the chat if you can see and hear us clearly. Put a 2 if not.
Okay, people see us.
We got some ones. Awesome. I want everybody to welcome back Brother Jeff St. James from Ask a Brother podcast. You all asked for a part 2 to our conversation, and here you have it.
Hey, I'm here. Thank you.
You have a part 2. So I wanted to jump right in there and just get sort of to the point. Gender role destruction. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while after our first conversation that we had, and how much that plays a role in everything. And I kind of came up with a little bit of a timeline, if you want to say. I don't know if it's a timeline, but a flow chart is probably more accurate to say, about the destruction of the gender roles. And I want your opinion on this first part.
Okay.
When, in your opinion, did society decide that gender roles were unnecessary or needed to at least be redefined?
Before I give my opinion on that, what are your thoughts? I know you've been thinking about it for a minute.
So I want to reverse us back to when the alphabet community and that whole, I call it an agenda, first started becoming more prevalent in mainstream conversation. The drive to accept it. I often link feminism to alphabet community because those things have always been hand in hand since its beginning, in my opinion. It's white supremacy, feminism, and the alphabet agenda is a trifecta. When everyone first started having the conversations, I don't know if you remember this, about being rainbow and you're born that way, those conversations, where you could not change that proclivity. Within that conversation, or on the back of that conversation, came the conversation about gender, obviously, and how gender roles was nothing more than a societal construct that was keeping us as a society from accepting other people that don't fit the norms.
Okay.
And it snowballed from there, from that conversation. It extended beyond the alphabet community and into non-alphabet communities. The bleed over, it's hard for me to make a hard stop with it, because in my eyes and in my observation of going through that time period, or those time periods, it was just continuous bleed over with no hard stop.
Gotcha.
So from the conversation about you're born alphabet, that transitioned into a conversation about gender roles, because people started talking about masculinity and femininity. What's a woman? What's a man? And what were the roles of men and women in family, in society? and in any aspect of life. So then we had to have a conversation about gender and separating gender from sex.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden your sex doesn't dictate your gender for some reason. And then once we separated the concept of your physical sex from your gender, we had a conversation about gender has to be a societal construct. Who says men have to be XYZ? Who says women have to be XYZ? We don't have to do that. Who has to do that? We got that from religion. We got that from the patriarchy. We got that from whatever other source they wanted to name that is now irrelevant. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I think the timelines are probably a little blurred from my perspective. I do acknowledge that there were definitely different agendas that used a lot of what you're talking about in terms of sexual habits, preferences, particular ideologies. All of these things had a role to play, I think, in how we got to the place where everything is so confused in terms of gender roles. What I will say is though, I think we'd be doing a disservice to this conversation if we don't acknowledge, in the modern sense anyway, that capitalism had a significant role in shaping the questioning and redefining of what that looks like, and ultimately leading towards many of the breakdowns in terms of men and women, especially within our community. I would personally argue that that was obviously earlier, and that was laid the groundwork for what we started to see in terms of the splitting off and in terms of the necessity for people to survive. So, as we get through continuing with this conversation, I'll try to go more in depth with why I think capitalism.
Now, you gonna go in depth right now because I want to hear it. I want to hear it because I think I know where you might be going with that.
Yeah. So, well, my starting premise, having thought about this for a minute, is that throughout most of human history, there was always a very, very, very small percentage of women who had the luxury of not working. So I think when we're even talking about this idea of roles and responsibilities and what men should be providing everything and women should just be home, not having to work or whatever, my anecdotal experience, my research, and even just looking throughout history, large chunks, I think what's happening is people are taking a very small substrata of women that were very wealthy, came from wealthy backgrounds, wealthy families, wealthy marriages. And this was something that was typically associated with upper class women during the Victorian era. And prior to that, like queens, princesses, they're taking this very small percentage of women who didn't have to work and it was looked down upon for them to work. And they're ignoring the other 95% of women that were always working to some degree. And now they might have been working in the home, they've been working in the field, they've been working in certain industries, but they were working. And when I grew up, like obviously I was young and grew up in Philly and then Jersey. When I would go to the Chinese store or a restaurant, right, to go get some Chinese food, who was at the front register and who was in the back?
The women,
Usually,
the mama, the daughters.
Usually the family. I've seen men back there cooking. I've seen women back there. Usually a woman that was at the front desk oftentimes. And with the Hispanic community, if we remember the stereotypes, is like a lot of the Mexican or Hispanic community, the men would often be doing a lot of hard labor jobs, especially construction. And I just vividly remember seeing a lot of their women also outside working too, and often doing a lot of cleaning type work and jobs. And when I go to Jamaican restaurants, who at the front desk taking my order and who cook, I'm seeing these families, men and women, contributing to the household and working together to build up their wealth. We as a community have, post-Reconstruction, adopted a lot of the capitalistic mindset of whatever's happening with, basically, I think, what's the best way to say it? At one point during Reconstruction, both parties were doing what we needed to do to make things work in each home. All right. Obviously, there were exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, both men and women were working. So when we started to decide that integration was better than what maintaining and protecting our own, in terms of our own cities, our own towns, many of which got destroyed, and we couldn't protect them. And many of us opted for, it would be better for me to go to their schools to get their degrees, to try to work within their systems. And we left the system that we had that accounted for making sure our men and our women were okay, our community. So when we started to push for integration, and the two things that I'm thinking about is integration and World War II. When World War II happened and all these men were out of the workforce, how did things continue to happen? Women in mass went to a lot of jobs that historically they weren't allowed to get access to, especially in factories. So as the women started working and they're like making money, doing it. And then what happens is these men come back. Two things happen. Integration happened, and a lot of the jobs got outsourced and sent out of the country simultaneously. So when these men came back and these women were able to start to integrate into different aspects of society that either they weren't allowed to because they were women or because they were Black, and they're now able to enter into those spaces and get access to those things at the same time that they're men, because of the government, because of the cost of living, because of things getting outsourced in terms of jobs that were easily available before he could have 6, 7, 8 kids like many of our grandparents did off of one income. As those things started to happen, the questioning and moving and shaping of our roles and what's our place in these households started to shift as well. So then when these men lost jobs and couldn't stay or couldn't provide, and these women could, and simultaneously the government was also saying, hey, we will help, but we're going to send somebody at the house to make sure we're not supporting a home that has an able-bodied man in the house. You could start to see what this was starting to do. It wasn't like these women were just leaving and saying, well, I'm going to go marry my white man. I'm going to go marry an Asian man. They were still staying loyal to Black men, generally speaking. But simultaneously, many of the men was not able to find work, not able to provide. There was incentives to keep them from being in the home. And there would be penalties to women that needed the household income and the additional supplemental support from said government. These are the seeds to me that started to lead to what we started to see later on. So when you have decade after decade of women functionally making their own money, being able to leave relationships for all types of reasons, some for abuse, some for neglect, some for cheating, you name it, regardless of the reason, you're starting to see, and at the same time, their white male counterparts was getting access to GI Bills. They were getting grants. They were getting loans, while their Black male counterparts were often not. And they were giving jobs to their women. To me, it seems clear as day that was what it was leading. It was leading towards an environment where male leadership was starting to be questioned, undermined, and not seen as essential, needed, or necessary. So it primed the community, particularly the women's side, to be more open and accepting of all this redefinition of some of these things, because the necessity of having to depend on a man was no longer there. Okay. So when they start planting all these other additional agendas, people, to me, it almost makes sense, where if male leadership is no longer in the picture and we're now functionally, culturally starting to move like we're matriarchy, it kind of adds up, where it's like, well, if we can control the women and the men aren't relevant anymore, we can kind of shape this culture to do anything, this community to do anything. So regardless of all the additional, people can point to the questioning and redefining of separation of sex and gender. They can point to certain sexual ideological viewpoints. They can point to the 4B movement. They can point to all these different things. My suggestion is that capitalism in and of itself is a system that over time is going to eat in on itself, and there's always going to be casualties. It just so happened that typically people, I think, in their head would think, well, if capitalism is going to hit people hard, who's it going to hit hard first? The jobs in the past, it was the jobs that were easily able to be shipped and outsourced versus the jobs that were kind of stuck here. And then now in 2025 and beyond, we're going to see the next iteration of this. What's going to happen now, and I think, I could be wrong, it could lead us in a direction where all those comfortable jobs where you got your AC and you're going to your office job and the government jobs, when those jobs start to get replaced with AI in the same way in which they were getting replaced in the past, where the men were the expendable commodity in the capitalist system. Now, which leading demographic over the last 9 months has lost more jobs than anybody else? Black women, most of which had those government jobs. So if this trend continues, I could see a scenario where the very same block that was saying men aren't needed and we don't want men, we don't need men, are going to have to reevaluate those talking points. So for me, I think that the economic system had a huge role to play in starting to put this divide in there.
Right. So we're saying the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
Which, when you combine what you said, because I agree with what you said, everything that you just said can be historically checked, right?
Yeah.
This has been written down. This has been recited to us. And I think one of our issues as a group of people is we compartmentalize that knowledge without putting it together to form the tapestry so that we can see it. We like to put one thing in this box, the other thing in that box. It's a confluence. Because all of those things, everything I said and everything that you said, is why we're here. I want to go back to the concept of women were always working and tie that to integration as we know it and as we experienced it. This is true. Women by and large have always worked, because when we think about older societies, they were agrarian societies for the most part. Agrarian, you needed to grow your food. That the modern conveniences simply were not there. So we're talking about a pre-industrialized society where we don't have the modern conveniences, not even so much as indoor plumbing, right? So if we have to raise our children on a homestead and we have to grow our own food and tend our own animals in order to be as self-sufficient as we can, then the women have to have work to do, right? Actual hands-on work. So the concept of a woman sitting on her tuffet, waiting on a man to come bring her all his money while she kick her toe up, that was Miss Ann. And I think a lot of Black women in particular get that mixed up. The wealthy white women, and like you pointed out, even before this society, when we talk about monarchies and things of that nature, the royalty among those women, they didn't do hands-on work, anything that, would disturb the facade of being royal and not being a part of the commoners and a part of the peasant class. This was operating on a caste system. So she's not lower class. So of course she's not going nowhere picking nothing up. She's not what I'm saying? She's got servants. She's got people that tend to her.
Yep.
Her job is to tend to the king, or what I'm saying, and raise his heirs. That's what she's supposed to be doing. When we fast forward it to our modern past here in America, because I said I wanted to tie that concept to integration and capitalism, reintroducing us to work as women should not have destroyed our concept of gender.
It shouldn't,
because we've always been working.
It shouldn't.
So that actually shouldn't have done it. I think that the form of integration that was the most destructive, because we tried segregation, we got the ball slapped out of our hands. So I don't know that we as a people had a choice in integrating into the system to the degree that we did, because we tried not doing that.
Yeah.
And all of our successful communities paid for that with their lives. They don't exist anymore because we were doing that. We were doing just that. Since we can't integrate, we're segregated, fine. We can build our own institutions. We can build our own schools and hospitals and stores. And, because we were the makers of it anyway. We was the slave class, but that meant that we knew how to do the work. We actually understood how things were built, how an infrastructure was built. Our men definitely understood it. So we were capable of building an infrastructure. We built the infrastructure of America. It's not rocket science.
The one thing we didn't do, though, was we built the infrastructure, we built the businesses, but we didn't provide the means to protect it.
And I don't know that we could have. I agree with you.
I don't know. I mean, when we had the towns that we had, the millionaires that we had, in hindsight, I think that was just an aspect that we weren't thinking about. In hindsight, I think for us to have hospitals and all the things that we did, for whatever reason, I think we were just looking at it as like, they'll leave us alone. We'll be fine. And it took to the Panthers for us to realize that the gravity of what it was that we were dealing with. And it wasn't like there wasn't slave revolts during the plantation times. It wasn't like after the Reconstruction, we had the Panthers. This was an economic era where we put so much time into all the other components of building our own civilization that we forgot the one piece, that people that will get jealous and will try to take it and will try to destroy it. And if we were smart enough to do all those other things, it seems like we didn't factor that piece in nearly as much as we should have. And again, the memory was not that far off ago of what they were doing to us. Our names are changed. Our last names are different. We can't go to certain locations. If we get caught wrong, they'll put us up on a tree. There's sundown town. So this was we were very aware of that. And I think for whatever reason, we thought that we could put all our time, energy, and focus into building up something. And we didn't have that same level of energy in terms of how to protect it. So yeah, of course, from a technological standpoint, no one could fight against the U.S. Army. But many of these towns that got burned down was burned down by other townspeople one town over. So, it wasn't like the army was moving in and doing all this stuff in all of the towns that we ended up losing. A lot of this was just greedy, jealous, racist who came in and tore up stuff. So in hindsight, I think we should have maybe put a little bit more time. Like, even if we try to do it today, is the average Black person is like, oh, I'm going to invest, I'm going to build this thing. Are we thinking about how we're going to protect it? Usually not. A lot of times I think that's the last piece. When you're in an environment that's hostile to you, you can't assume you can do everything they can do and you'll be fine. You have to account for the malevolence, the evil, the carnal nature of your neighbors that don't agree with you. And that's the thing that I think that we missed the mark on as a people group. And I'm saying this on regards to men. I think that we didn't protect nearly as much as perhaps we could have. And we were brilliant. We did so many things during that era, but that was one thing that I do think that we dropped the ball on. And many towns may be still standing to this day if we had.
I don't want to get stuck here, so I'm gonna move on. Only because I both agree and somewhat disagree. I agree that we probably did not do or take into account everything or the lengths that we would have to go to protect that which we built.
Yeah.
There probably was some percentage of we're segregated so they can be over there because we don't have anything they don't have, supposedly.
Yeah.
So they can just stay over there. So there, I can see that because that's kind of how we are as a people.
Yeah.
At the same time, our willingness or our men's willingness to go to whatever depth or level that they would have needed to go to protect everything that they had built probably was superseded by the ability, the physical, practical ability to do it. Because townspeople, a town over is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't destroy you, you know they're coming with something else. They're not going to leave it. They're going to come with a stronger force. And that stronger force is going to overwhelm our force because they would have had the guns, the backing, the money to keep going. I mean, when you drop a bomb on Black Wall Street,
Mm-hmm.
what was our men supposed to do with that? There's nothing to do with that. What do they do with that? What do you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying it to be contradictory. I just think that there are probably several aspects of that.
Yeah.
That we can kind of speculate on since neither of us were there.
Yeah.
But I don't think either of us are completely off either.
Yeah. I believe it or not, and I look at this through the lens of, remember when Kanye made his comment about slavery being a choice? And everybody, lost their minds. I was like, what are you, so disrespectful, so this, so that. And I take Kanye with a grain of salt, because 9 times out of 10, he's usually 3 to 5 years ahead of many of the things that he's initially saying. And when I think about Harriet Tubman, did she see being a slave as a choice based on her actions? Did she agree with all the people who were going off on Kanye that slavery wasn't a choice? Or did she see it as something that she was willing to die for and choose to no longer be in that system? Now, again, it came with risk. Both sides came with pros and cons, came with consequences. She was intentionally choosing to not stay in the position. And when I think about those plantations and how we outnumbered them, 20 to 1, 30 to 1, 40 to 1, and we would stay. Sometimes I think that and it's true what you're saying, that of course, if the whole government or the whole anything comes against a very small demographic, it's sure. But countless times I've seen examples of people with very small numbers be able to withstand and endure and even overcome with strategy, with planning, with networking. What I'm basically getting at is like the Howard Zinn, when he wrote his book about relooking at U.S. history, and he talked about that era early on when these colonists were settling down and they're establishing all these rules and laws for the natives and the blacks and the Hispanics and this group and that group, and they had to come up with all these different rules and policies to try to get them all aligned so that they wouldn't unify and work together to overthrow the ones that was kind of controlling it all. And in hindsight, I look back and wonder, perhaps part of the reason for why we thought that we couldn't do it and why is because we had always assumed that they would win, they had more, and that the people who would be willing to fight with us against those that were trying to steal from us didn't feel the same way. And it's like, oh, let's give this group, oh, you're kind of white, so we're gonna give you some extra privileges, and if you help us with catching a runaway slave, we're gonna give you an honorary this. They came up with all these interesting trinkets to kind of to keep us divided. So even this discussion we're talking about today, when we're talking about the LGBTQ agenda, the transformer identity thing, and all the different movements and things that they're pushing, that's pushing all of this cultural division. What would an ultra rich capitalist like the DuPonts, like the Rockefellers, who funded many of these things, what agendas would they push? Would they push agendas in society and in culture that would drive men and women towards each other or further apart? So the capitalist that wants to be able to make as much money and have as many employees as possible wants division. So whatever agenda from a cultural, political standpoint that's going to cause division within these groups, I'm going to fund, and I'm going to get the politicians to back it. So now that y'all fighting about this stuff, Y'all can't get it. Y'all can't get it together in your homes. You can't get it together in your schools. You can't get it together in your culture. And I'm going to fund every divisive thing that I can, because I know in the end point, it's going to be more profit for me. Because I do know that if it's the option for one of you to not have to work, it's harder to control it if the man is handling everything and he's secure, and I can't get access to his wife now. Now I can get access to the mother of his children, because if the mother is home, now they may not be able to come to the schools that I'm funding. So I think a lot of the points that you're making, the capitalists that benefits the most from the top are the ones that push this back during the Gloria Steinem days all the way up until now. I think that they've been funding every major destabilizing political ideology.
It's not think. Yeah. No, that is exactly. See, now we're getting into another layer. This is a different realm, even from the conversation that I was going to have today. But I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
Because now we're talking about the elite versus what they consider to be chattel, the cattle. The elite operate on capitalism.
Yes.
They have us operating in socialism.
Yeah.
Because I heard somebody ask on the back of our last conversation, it was a comment, and it was like, well, because you mentioned capitalism at some point in the conversation, and then we started talking about how feminism was socialist and Marxist. And they were like, well, how is feminism socialist and Marxist, but it's capitalist? I'm like, listen.
I can't wait to talk about
this. I did not respond to that comment just because I didn't respond to the comment. But what we have to understand is who is the capitalist and who is the socialist, and how do they, the mysterious they that everybody refers to, right? Who we're talking about, the so-called elites. These rich, wealthy families, only a few of them.
13 families. Let's just put it out there. The 13 families.
There's just 13 of them.
13 families.
That's it.
That's them. It's the 13
families. Held wealth, who have been in control of the central banking system, which was the purpose of the federal, getting rid of the Federal Reserve. I showed a clip probably a year and a half ago of this man. He's passed now, named Aaron Russo. And Aaron Russo had a clip. He had a whole documentary. He used to do documentaries. And one of his most popular documentaries was called Freedom to Fascism. And he started out, I don't know if you've ever seen that. If you haven't, Freedom to Fascism.
Okay.
Oh, you need to watch that one. Brother Jeff, you would like that. You would definitely appreciate that. It might be a little difficult to find at this point. However, one of the excerpts that he was talking about, he was speaking about his conversation with one of the Rockefellers, and they asked him.
I watched that clip.
You see, so you know what I'm referring to. He said, "Okay, so why do you think what was feminism and women's lib? Why do you think we started that?" And he was like, he gave the cookie cutter, the answer everybody was fed. Yeah. We're uplifting and empowering women. And he said he laughed at them. No, that's not why. If we can bring the women out of the house and make them work, then we can tax that household twice, right? And more importantly, to a point that you made, now we can get access to the children.
Boom.
The children and indoctrinate them. Because if mom has to work because of the way, in a direction in which the economy and the society is moving, because we're making it in such a way where one man's income can't be enough to sustain his family. He would have to make so much X amount of money in order to support just him and like 2 kids with his wife, right? That becomes this huge expense when you had men that were able to go to the Ford company in Detroit, right? The Ford factory plant, to work in the car factory plant off of a high school diploma. He didn't have to go to a 4-year university to get anything. Nope. He didn't have to waste that money. All he had to do was take shop in high school or vocation, go to the plant, work for 30 years. He could pay his mortgage. He could pay his children's future. He could buy a home.
Many of them have pensions.
Family. He could have a pension, and he could retire when he's in his 60s and he's done and his children are grown.
Yeah.
See, people could achieve the so-called American dream.
Yeah.
But if I'm an elite, first of all, too many people are difficult to control, even mentally.
Yes.
All of these things are so intertwined. Even when you talked about how is it that we were outnumbering our so-called slave masters and still could not manage, even with the revolts, even because it wasn't like there were no revolts. We were constantly in revolt to this. So why did it take so long to finally break that chain? And it is mysterious to me how we can see that as Black people and then not understand what a system of abuse entails. Because we would have had to be under a system of abuse in here, in order to keep our bodies where our slave masters wanted them to be, and keep doing what it was that we did not want to do, to be complicit in our own captivity and be complicit in our own oppression, even when we knew we didn't want to do that. And we couldn't sustain that as a group of people. There was no way that we wanted to go through indefinitely, because that was their concept, indefinitely. You know what I'm saying? You're going to be a slave class indefinitely. They've actually kept up with that, even though we're not in chattel slavery anymore.
A lot of people say it's wage slavery now. A lot of people say it's wage slavery now because overwhelming majority of us, and this has gone beyond the Black community. Almost none of us can stop working today and be fine 6 months from now. So the reality is we're dependent on a system. I was talking to a friend recently about the fact that over the next 5 years, in the process of trying to make enough money to put myself in a position to where my wife can work optionally, I need to learn a trade. And I think every single man that's went ahead and got a college degree, everything. Okay, there was a decision between Booker T.
I want you to hold that thought, because what I want to do is acknowledge these super chats, and I want to do my sponsorship. But please hold that thought. All right. So after these messages, we'll be right back. So I need everybody to take a break. Go to ashkicking.com. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. If you want to keep your skin looking, feeling, smelling its absolute best, then you need the body butter that is on your screen right now. I guarantee you will not be disappointed. If this is going to be your first order, please take 10% off of your first order using the promo code Crimson at checkout. Once again, the link is pinned to the top of the chat, ashkicking.com. I owe you guys a bam, 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 bam. You gotta hit the like button, bam, bam. Come on, hit the like button. All right. All right, hit the like button. Hey, what's good? Hamp from This Might Be Risky. Thank you so much for your contributions. You know, I always appreciate you. Thank you. Thai Boxing says Project Wormway forced indoctrination is what fanned the flames, and the results have been catastrophic for our community. If not fixed, we will be past tense within 2 generations. Thank you. Terenzo said this has been going on for quite some time, perhaps before Gen Xers were born, as law of gender is a part of studying alchemy, the study of everything. Thank you. Mogul May said great content. Everything was orchestrated when we see the results now. Thank you. Sister Beshua said sadly there are many Black women who want to be seen as a housewife, but only based on reality TV. A housewife works. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, sewing, caring for children, etc. is work. Thank you. Dead Set said when a group it's been a minute since I've seen you, Dead Set. When a group loses its capacity to engage in violence and loses its ability to defend itself and its interests, there is a reason why government inculcates men to be passive and less violent. Thank you so much. Peachtree said brilliant. Self-defense is number one for survival of any nation. I appreciate you. Thank you again to Renzo said, with the entire world knowing about the 13 families and having known for so long, why hasn't the entire world outed them and gotten rid of them indefinitely? Seriously asking, because that was the point to Renzo. That was the point to one of the points anyways, was to create a system of dependence.
Mm-hmm.
A system of dependence.
Yeah, from a modern, from a modern
upon us, the suckling the teat, if you will, of this system, this government, this central banking system, all of it. They've moved us. They moved us from the gold standard to fiat currency to digital currency.
Yep.
And no one has said anything. We just accepted it. All of us, we accepted it. You know, we accepted it. We accepted that, you know, many of us don't walk around with cash anymore, when that used to be the only way you could pay for anything. You had to have cash. Your money is digital. If the digital bank shuts off and you don't have your money in your pocket, you don't have any money. Period. I don't care what you had. You can have $50 million. If it's in a bank and they shut that bank off, you're up the creek without a paddle. You're broke. That was the point.
We were modernized into submission so that if and when we revolt, every form of survival that we depend on can easily be taken away. Overwhelming majority of us don't own farms. We don't raise cattle. We don't grow food. They've been convinced a huge demographic of a certain voting bloc to not even have weapons. So they functionally culturally neutered you. And then they've taken your women away from you and convinced your children that you're behind the times and shouldn't accept your leadership. So they've modernized us into submission to such a degree. When people say, well, why don't we this or why don't we that? Let's start with learning trades and growing food and then starting to build communities. And I would argue some of the things that I've looked back at the civil rights movement and some of the errors of some of the great icons and groups that were really big during that time. The two things that I noted was that we tended to display out loud and in the open all the great things that we were doing in our community. Oh, look what they're doing in this town. Look what they're doing in this area. We made all these big announcements, make it known how we're thriving, how we're doing so well. We highlighted and propped up our leaders and always kept putting them to the forefront so that leadership in the face of movements wasn't decentralized. It was very small individuals that were always seen as the face, and not something that was always spread out. And then what would happen is you would demoralize the groups that were trying to focus on the growing, the protection, because all you had to do was take out the leader. If you could take out the leader, compromise the leader, the movement dies off. And we never learned that lesson that the Garveys, all the different Panther leaders, Malcolm X, whenever all these different leaders got taken out, because leadership and the movement was always seen as more of something with a Black Messiah type. I don't think that we thought about short and long term that when we don't protect those individuals and we don't figure out a way from a corporal perspective of being able to, they functionally tricked us into thinking that everything that we need to survive is based on the government. Right? So for me, for instance, I know that if all the things that we're saying we need to do, we started doing, some of us would have to strongly consider underground bunkers, putting supplies in different towns, zip codes and areas, having security, and nobody knows where this stuff is but the people that need to know. So just what I'm saying is food, water, weapons, everything that we need isn't in the naked eye easily able to be found and seen. Every single man. So I'll give you an example of what I think. Let's say hypothetically we try it again. We got a 10-year plan. Every single person that watches this, we're all going to relocate to the city of Ms. Crimson Cure's choice. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to say how much money we need to save individually, what supplies we need to bring, what skill sets you need to learn over the next decade. And quietly but surely, we move in that direction of integrating and taking over that space. We take over it physically, We take over it politically, and that is now our town. And then we start to have meetings, and we establish how we're going to protect this town and how we're going to protect the people, the women, the children. We take over the schools. We take over the churches. We take over everything. And then everybody who is at odds with it is going to get very uncomfortable until they up and leave. And then all the supplies that we're growing, which is great, and we're stocking stuff, we start putting things in locations that's not even where the town is. So even if they bomb the town, destroy the town, we have so many things dispersed and spread out in various locations that only the leadership knows about. We'll be able to rebuild in 3 months. So again, there's no perfect plan. What I'm suggesting is that we were modernized to the degree, and we were integrated to the degree that we've been kind of subjugated to the whims of technology, ease, comfort, to where every able-bodied man isn't even thinking from a militant standpoint of the need to be able to protect you and his sister, his daughter, and his wife. And what I'm suggesting is the radical shift that needs to take place for us to even get into that space would require a radical revolution here individually, and then finding like-minded individuals and saying, we need to very quickly learn certain skills, build up our resources, and then coalesce and come together.
I agree. And you hit upon it on the very last thing that you said, because I was going to say it and I'm going to expound on it. That what you just laid out would be perfectly fine. Merely any plan would work. Merely any plan would work, except
what?
The problem with us is this.
Yeah.
See, the integration that did us the dirtiest was this one. It was the integration of a value system that don't belong to us. It was this. This is our problem. Yeah. Because we have no spirituality. If all of you who are viewing, look at this chart. The bottom rung is spiritual. And in the lost value system, there's no truth. Not operating in any form of truth. At the top is wealth, and on the other side in yellow, you see no detachment. Can't detach from whatever our concept is of wealth nowadays. How we think of the internal values with very little regard. We don't really regard. Along with everything that happened with us and all of the agendas we adopted those agendas. Yeah. One reason, because we gave up our spirituality and the truth of that. Since we could not abide in the truth, when you don't abide in the truth, you accept lies. All manner of lies, all kinds of lies. No matter who tell you the lie, or where it comes from, or what the end result of that lie is going to be. We followed suit. And I remember when this happened, when there was a big push for speaking out against religion and spirituality, speaking out against Christianity, speaking out against Islam, speaking out against all of it as antiquated. I remember when they came out with that documentary, it took everybody storm, the Zeitgeist. And that first one was about poking holes in all of your religious or spiritual belief systems. That conversation was being had in the light of, you are backwards and antiquated as an individual and not progressive as an individual if you held on to these ancient belief systems that don't have any bearing on the modern world anymore. We don't live back there anymore, where people would believe anything because they didn't know about science and they didn't understand anything about the world, and they didn't understand anything. We have so little regard for the intelligence of ancient societies, right? Yeah. But that was handed to us. And then, and we took that on. And we Black people started saying, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? I don't really believe in God, you know. And I'm like, I clutched my imaginary pearls at that time. And the reason that I did that is because in my mind, I was like, even if I don't agree with your spiritual system and what you choose to believe, there has to be something. You gotta have something. You can't just not have nothing.
Yeah.
Because once there's nothing and you replace that with, thank you for the word, cynical, secularism. Once you replace that with, now you're dependent upon mainstream media outlets, any
Culture.
trend, any societal or cultural shift to dictate to you now what's right and wrong, what's legal and illegal, what's a good moral compass, what isn't, you know what I'm saying? And all of those sorts of things. Case in point, when we go back to the LGBT agenda concept, you're a bad person. It's morally wrong if you think that biologically a man can't be a woman and a woman can't be a man. Now there's something wrong with you. You're morally corrupt. Not
if you don't believe that,
disagree with it. You're morally corrupt. It's those kinds of things. And I'm sorry, I got a chart for everything. I'm gonna land. Why do we do this to each other? 1 hour. We know we're gonna talk. Anyway, but we're going back to when I break down biology, culture, and environment. When we talk about capitalism, that's environment. The use of the institution to spur a change that's going to affect us culturally and biologically. It is my opinion that every time a biocultiron is achieved through environment first and working backwards towards biology, a bad value system is produced. If we work towards from biology to environment, a good value system is produced. This is why our movements were always cut short, because we started with biology always and culture. We would have a handle on biology and culture, who we were culturally. We would get that identity solidified. The problem that we would have in this country was the environmental change. How do we get or seize or wrest control of the institutions? And see, that's when they started destroying us, because when we would get that, again, the institution, our educational institution, health institutions, all of those are institutions. How to educate ourselves, how to do all of that. Once we did, that's when they would cut the head off the snake, because that produces that. How can I say it? Because my mouth is running faster than my brain. We were shifting away from the value system they gave us to the one we needed to be in. And every time we would actively do that, that is where that vitriol came from. Not to get clouded by, oh, they were just racist. It's deeper than that. It's more than that. It's more than that. It is, we can't have an entire subsection of people that don't integrate here with what we're trying to do, because if they're not integrated here, what we do doesn't work. It doesn't work on them.
So 2 things. One, that chart was great to see visually in terms of the key sections that we have to reevaluate and refocus on if we want to see anything improve. There's 2 people or 2 groups currently that I think we need to take a strong look at. Burkina Faso, over in Africa, and how the government and the people literally took over control of their resources that was being extracted to foreign powers, and the Amish here in Pennsylvania. And realizing that those 2 things that have been happening and are currently happening in modern times is lessons that I think we need to start to take seriously, and start potentially implementing very, very, very quickly. Now, what you're saying in terms of the biological component, the spiritual component, the cultural component, and the environmental component, although everybody may have difference of opinions about the starting point, the reason why I'm choosing to engage in this type of stuff right now is I actually do think it starts with the individual. Right? Now, with the individual, my viewpoint is there needs to be a radical shift in terms of the mindset of the precarious nature of how bad things are, where they're heading, and what's next for us if we don't do something different. And I'm telling us, I'm basically saying 2030 is the magic number everybody keeps talking about, but I'm basically saying 10 years. You have 10 years to be in a radically different situation individually to be able to have options collectively. If you as an individual do not do what you need to do individually, get out of debt, to build up your resources, to be allowed and able to relocate, and the potential option of potentially being able to leave this country in the next 10 years, you are going to be at the mercy of whatever's here on the other side of that. So for me, let's say 2030 is the magic number where most things gets fully digitized and physical currency is no longer an option. And then the World Health Economic Forum and all, and then now they can dictate what we can eat, where we can travel, wanting us to get off of gas cars. Who knows to the degree of what the stuff is going to happen. Individually, you all know where you are versus where you should be with your women, with your men, with your lifestyle, with your money, with your community or lack thereof. My view is we need to become readers again very quickly. We need to start finding like-minded people, both digitally and virtually, as well as in real life. And we need to start small. Each of us knows there's things we could be doing, could be learning, and we're choosing to spend all our time on TikTok, on Instagram, always in other people's business. We get lost in drama. My view and my lenses is like I've gotten to a place or point where I'm reading so much and learning so much, and I'm so hungry for knowledge right now, not just for the sake of having it, but because I have various plans in my head about what we're going to do in my household and what we're going to do with the handful of people that I think is moving in the same or similar direction. I don't have, like you said when we last talked, and you talked about how everybody not going to come with us. Everybody not going to make it. So I'm going to just call it the new Black Renaissance. Intellectually, spiritually, politically, I think that there's going to be a major shift over the next 4 to 8 years, where there's going to be a divide between the blacks and the Black Americans, whatever y'all want to self-identify currently. I think there's going to be a divide between those that starting to be more free thinking, open, revolutionary, wanting to grow, wanting to mature, and those that want to continue status quo. And they're going to listen to the boule and those at the top, the famous Black politicians and Black celebrities that say, this is how we need to move, and this is how we need to vote, and we need even if our situation ain't changing, it can always get worse. Like, you're going to have that group, and you're going to have those of us that's like, all right, we're in a system that's not kind to us. And we have to very quickly figure out, both individually and collectively, for those that want to, how we can put ourselves in a position where we're more independent, more self-sufficient. And if we up and do need to relocate, what are those locations we can go to, both here domestically and abroad? Any other options? Of course, people can have a whole host of things. My view is, if you're not thinking that way, you need to very soon.
And I agree. I actually agree. I've said this a couple of times on my channel. When people ask for, well, what's the solution? You talk about value systems, you talk about Biocultirons and all of these things. But what's the solution? How can we as a group, and I always stop people, it's not we as a group.
Yeah.
It literally at this point has to be done on an individual basis.
It's a starting point.
Because the separation from the wheat and the tares is already in progress. So that, again, just to reiterate everything that you just said about individually having to come to these conclusions.
Yeah.
And then practically working on how to essentially make ourselves self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I will say about our palm-colored counterparts
Mm.
is they gonna figure out how to live off grid.
Mm-hmm.
They like to figure out how to survive in the bush,
Yep.
as they call it, bushcraft. How to separate themselves
Yeah.
from technology and still survive outside of that, as they call the grid, or as we would call the matrix. What, I don't care.
As a man, I need to learn it. As a man, I need to learn it.
Exactly. And that's one thing I say, you know what, they're gonna, and they don't take to their Second Amendment rights being stepped on. They like their guns for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they actually understand, first of all, who they are with each other, and then they just understand certain things that as a collective of Black people in America, we've lost a lot of sight of.
Yep.
We kind of lost a lot of sight of a lot of it because, like you said before, we let the Democratic Party tell us that guns was dangerous. No, they're not. No, they're not. The people who will, because gun law don't keep a criminal away from a gun. I be trying to tell people that a criminal is a criminal. They gonna get the gun illegally.
Yeah,
they gonna have a gun. Okay, it's you that's not gonna be able to go into a gun store and buy a gun because this thing and you ain't got enough money and this thing was on your record and you know they scanned it and you don't got a proper ID and whatever else other ramifications and requirements that it takes for you to have a gun and all of that type of stuff. Meanwhile, those who don't care to abide by any rules got a whole stash of guns and ready to use them whenever they get ready to use them on whoever they're gonna use them on. So I'm saying this to say, just to wrap up my point, and this is sort of my closing thoughts too. I agree with the individual. We have to segregate mentally. Yep. We have to segregate out of the way of thinking that we were taught and the way of thinking that we living in, because it has not been beneficial to us at all. We have been destroyed. Yeah. By all of it, whatever, from whatever aspect you want to come at it, from feminism, capitalism, socialism, you want to come at it from the LGBT, it doesn't matter how you look at it, what pair of glasses you wear to look at this, we've been destroyed by all of it. Yeah. Together.
I wanted to tell you two things real quick, because I know we're wrapping up. On my channel, we're in the process of not every person, but a lot of the people, I'm encouraging the people who's coming to my platform for us to very quickly to start reading again. And each month we're going to start reading. And I'm just going to mention some of these books in case you or any of your listeners want to start reading it. And it's only because I'm reading these books with a lot of what you're talking about in mind. The first one is George Orwell. What was it? 1984. I think it was 1984 book. I think it's explaining in very much in detail what's going on with our civilization, really westernized countries, as well as Brave New World by Huxley. And I think those two books would very quickly help us to, eyes wide open, you can now see what's happening in the matrix you've been born into. And then with those two books, that Orwell is August, Huxley for Brave New World is September, October is The Case Against the Sexual Revolution by Louise Perry. Those three books will open up our eyes to what feminism has done and what it's tricked our women into, how to view the need or lack thereof of our men. It opens us up to our over-reliance of the government in terms of our viewpoint, our perspective of being able to better understand how we bring control with our language, with what we're allowed to believe, which you mentioned in terms of if you don't agree with this, now you're a horrible person and it's a reflection of your character. Like, they're controlling what you're allowed to express, what you're allowed to believe, who you're allowed to vote for, what choices you have with voting. They're using all the tactics that's mentioned in the book, these two books. And I think that if we better very quickly read something that shows us the lengths of how they do that, as well as some of the carnal components of feminism, then we can be woken up to, oh, so the enemy is actually not other Black women. The enemy is not actually other Black men. The enemy are those individuals who want us to be divided, and these are the tactics that they used. That brings us up to speed to being able to then work better together. Because what happens is everybody's just coming from their frame of reference of talking. And when we're actually reading a book or text that helps us to better conceptualize the environment that we're actually in, then you're better able to understand who's actually your allies versus who is actually your enemies. And like you said, I firmly believe that if we start reading again, if we start talking again and not arguing, like talking and really taking seriously what things you're saying and I'm saying, if we start as individually, what am I lacking? What do I need to learn? How can I protect it? How can I grow it? And then can I find like-minded people to start building with? We need to have the option of being able to leave, to protect, to grow, to come together. And if you don't put yourself in that position over the next 5 to 10 years, like I said, you're at the mercy of whatever the government sees fit. And the second piece I was going to mention was 2020 was what woke me up. I had been politically active and interested since 2006, 2007, in my own way as a teenager. 2020 was when the glasses fully came down, when the blinders finally came off, when 2020 happened. And I saw our government decide to say where we can travel, where we could go, what stores could be closed, gyms were closed. And I saw how all of us were rushing to grocery stores, and I saw people fighting for cases of water
and toilet paper.
And I sat back and thought about it for a second. I said, wow. So anything could happen, and almost all of us don't have more than 2 weeks worth of supplies in our residences, and we don't grow anything. We don't make anything. Whoa. And it came and went, and people forgot about it, and we moved on. And that stuck with me of how vulnerable a position we are in. If the grid goes down, if it's a cyber attack, if all of our money becomes effectively useless because it's in a digitalized whatever. And if the government just decides, like they did last time, you can't get on a plane now. You can't go in this store now. And we, like many of us, we just accepted it. And now in hindsight,
no other choice.
I'm thinking that 2020 was the precursor for potentially anything that can happen. And we didn't realize that Marxism and socialism was thrown in our face in that moment. And the overwhelming majority of us, including myself, complied. Mm-hmm. No matter how many books I read, no matter how politically aware I was in that moment of scarcity and emergency. Government, take care of us, please. And I saw it one or two more times after 2020, where there was water shortages. There was like an issue in Philly where we couldn't get the water. And I went up to 3 different stores. All the water was gone. And I was like, we don't clean our own water. We don't grow our own food. Many of us don't have the weapons we need to protect ourselves. And many of us have been very careless with our finances to be able to put ourselves in positions where we can barter, we can negotiate, we can leave if we need to. And I'm realizing now I have a different level of urgency, both for myself and my family and for those that care, to be in this position. And I'm seeing some of the comments on these people that keep going back and forth between Trump and Biden and this and that. I'm gonna help y'all out real quick, because when y'all come to my page with that stuff, half the time I'm not going to engage with it. If you're still in a place where you're still arguing about the 2-party system, that was high school. In terms of political knowledge and awareness about what we're talking about today, if you're still talking about the 2-party system and which side is worse or better, you're arguing about your flavor of fascism. So you're arguing about your place of fascism. That is an illusion. And I don't know how many times people got to tell you about the duopoly exists. The people at the top always win. They always get what they want. And they're dividing you on cultural issues so that they can keep every 4 years extracting more of our rights and resources and wealth. When you get that part down, what we're talking about is the next step. It's an evil system that belongs to them. And the idea that the people that run the world are happy with, oh, here, you can vote away your oppression. You can vote out the things that's going to undermine our ability to control your lives and control the world. Here's the option of how you can do that. Stop it. Those that run the world keep running it no matter who's in office.
Thank you.
So your job is to become more politically aware, politically astute, more educated, smarter, more self-sufficient, more independent, and collaborating with people who are thinking on that same wavelength. Every other thing that you're thinking to do is talking and sounding and acting like a slave. If everybody here watched The Matrix, if these people read the books, we are in the systems that we're reading and watching. Every dystopian movie that we've seen, we're in it. We're in it. And this community, we're the bottom of the rung. So if you want to kind of wake up real fast and realize that the people who's talking about Kamala Harris or Trump or Biden or Obama, we're not your enemies. We're saying that the system is broken and the people that's allowed to rise to the top are the most compromised. They are using you for your votes, and that's it. You should know this when they come and only visit your church during election cycles. When you going to get the hint? The definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. We have to do something different. And I promise you, voting is not going to be primarily the issue. The answer. So sorry I went off on a tangent, but I'm so motivated to try to fight in my own small ways on the individual and collective level. I get so frustrated with the people who refuse to read books but want to argue with me.
Should we take that as your final thought, brother?
Listen, I could do this for another hour. So
I could, but I can't because of time. But I want to because let me just be honest with you. This is completely not the conversation that I was gonna have.
Yeah, we had something totally different.
But I often do this on my own when I'm by myself. I have a concept for a show, and then the spirit tell me to say something else. It moved me to say something else, something that people actually need to hear. So what I thought to say was less important. Because this conversation has a lot of layers. Believe it or not, we have not scratched the surface of any of this in reality, because I have been reading up on the elites, the this, that, from different aspects since the early 2000s. And really since 9/11, really. 2020 was them doing a big one. That was their test run. Because if you remember, they had been trying to get a pandemic off the ground with the swine flu. They were trying to scare people with that. They tried like 2 or 3 times with the swine flu, H1N1. They tried it a couple of times. It didn't take off. C-19 took off. Okay. To the point where they were able to essentially use 2020 to redistribute wealth, which is, and we're watching another redistribution of wealth go on right now. I was fortunately, during 2020, I was fortunate enough not to be an employee of anybody during 2020. So I was doing YouTube and Uber in 2020. And not that I was making so much hand over fist or not a part of the system as well, but one thing I didn't have to worry about was being furloughed or laid off of a job that, you know what I'm saying, somebody dictate to me the money I can't go get. But it still drove home to me the urgency, like you said, kind of getting a sense of urgency after that, because I ended up buying a bug out bag, so I keep one of them. I keep gas in the car, because at any given moment, might have to get up out of here. Might have to get up out of here. Okay. And I would suggest buying an actual map, a paper map, because you might have to turn that.
I need to do that. I need to do that. I didn't even think of that. I need to do that.
So, because they used to sell atlases. They don't sell them no more. They used to, Rand McNally was the publishing company that used to sell atlases. And an atlas was the roadmap for every state in the contiguous 48 states. I don't even think Rand McNally sells those anymore. I would have to look that up. because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they sell physical atlases anymore. My father used to keep them, and every couple of years they would revise them, you know what I'm saying, just to keep up with, you know, if new roads was built or other roads was not existing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Get one if you don't have one. If you can find them, get
I'm
now.
gonna look for one. I'm gonna look for one. I'm working out. I'm back to working out. I'm getting my diet in order.
Yep.
Everything that you're talking about, from getting your physical fitness back in check, getting your finances in order, stocking up on food, learning how to grow some food and how to catch some food, getting some weapons, self-defense training. These are the essential things that our other counterparts are doing, are learning. There's towns that's starting to sound like white only towns are starting to pop back up. Everything's happening. 2020 happened and white towns are starting to pop back up, and we just arguing with each other about men versus women and who's allowed to lead.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for your platform and you inviting me on. But I hope this type of conversation is really motivating all of us to start locking in on things that we know we need to tighten up on. So hopefully the next time we connect, we can even talk about like, all right, so what do we do? What's next steps? And hopefully we'll be even further along than where we are now.
We gonna have it next time. I don't know when, but you're gonna have we're gonna be, and I hate to draw this comparison, but this is what came to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I said this is going to be, you know how the talk shows used to have the resident therapist always come in.
Yeah.
I said this is what this is gonna be.
Hey.
My resident therapist when I need to have certain conversations. I hope you don't mind that, because I mean that with the highest level of respect for you and your intellect and your perspective. So we're gonna go. I've kept this man for longer than I told him I was gonna keep him. So what we're gonna do is wrap this up. I would like to add 2 more books to that list.
Mm-hmm.
One is Animal Farm, also by George Orwell.
Yeah, people have been mentioning that to me, and I haven't ordered it yet.
And for the ladies, Reclaiming the Black Feminine,
hey.
The Lies of Feminism and the Road to Recovery. All you have to do is go to crimsoncure.com and make the purchase for this book. Wonderful information contained therein. I want to thank you once again, Mr. St. James, for coming and having this wonderful conversation with me. Hopefully I'm not missing too many super chats. Thank you, Uncle Rick. So our people will perish due to lack of knowledge, not information. Peace, good sis, and the brother. Thank you, Naeem. So bogged down with fighting our women, we can't see clear to fight other enemies. I want to thank everybody for coming through. Once again, I want to thank Mr. St. James for offering his time and his perspective to us. Jump down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not. Once again, I'm your hostess, The Crimson Cure, and this was my perspective. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.